He worked with the Beatles on just about all of those great albums. He was the tape operator.
What was he like to work with?
It was fantastic. Fast as, and great ears, He really should have been credited as the producer. I think he did on some of them. But he was a great production, great engineer.
Yeah.
And he just pulled those great sounds really quickly,
Yeah.
And he'd record, as soon as you walk in the door, he'd just turn the tape on. The red light would go on. You wouldn't realise he was recording it. So he'd tape everything, just in case
So you had things to pull from.
Yeah, just in case you'd miss, I wish we did that last take. You go, no problem, I've done it already, Like Harvey come in and say, I think I'll record the solo now. He said, well, it's done. You just did it 2 takes ago, Oh, did I? Can I have a listen? That's how it came about.
Well, like Ricky, don't lose that number. As soon as you hear that bass line,
it's a little bit different. Yeah, it's a bit different.
The 1/5 thing, but you move to another chord.
And it's also it's on a Gino Vanelli song as well, which is more like the bass line. But we just decided, I didn't think of that. I just went. Gus said, "What do you think of that as a bass line?" I went, "Oh, it's great. It's had that Ricky sort of feel." And we just moved it up a tone each time, and that made it different enough to keep it and not worry about songwriting problems.
And that riff at the end, where he sits on one note,
yeah, that's Keep Me Hanging On riff.
I thought so.
And a lot of, that's more like the old Supremes Keep Me Hanging On.
Not Vanilla Fudge.
Well, that too, we used to do that actually.
Oh, did you?
We've got a live version of that on the internet, of us playing the Vanilla Fudge version, but we put a solo in it and harmonies and stuff which they didn't do, but it's always great fun to play.
Yeah. What other songs did you write?
I wrote bits of, third of here and half there and sometimes a 10th of here. We just did, I wrote a fair bit on stuff that didn't get played in Australia but it went well overseas, like the Skill album in the 80s and Defying Gravity album. They did pretty well in the States. We got into the top 30 with those, which means, we sold a couple of 100,000 copies. If you'd have sold that amount in Australia, you'd be number one. But nobody even knew of them here. And Daft Punk just covered one of our songs last year. They had a number one with it.
Which one?
Which I wrote 10% of.
Oh,
right, a very small amount.
The royalties.
But when you're number one in the States and all over Europe and you write 10% of it, it's not too bad. It's quite nice.
All right.
I'm thinking if I did well on that and I wrote 10%, Garth wrote 90%, you did very well at it. It's called Contact, I think. They did 2 things. They did 2 things of ours, which means they must have trawled the net to have a look, see what's going on,
Well, they can
and we were there somewhere and they liked us, so the net's been really good for us in that area, About a third of what we recorded, or even almost half, is on the net somewhere that you can have a listen to for free, so it's pretty good. It's only MP3s and stuff, but it's always better to buy the album. Well, it sounds better. Yeah.
I've often thought when you're writing these songs, you piece them together, and like a jigsaw puzzle. Yeah. Then how much effort is there involved in them learning it so that you do it live?
Well, it depends. You've always got to do that because things change. If you're doing things with strings and stuff, like ours that had strings on it, so we couldn't afford a big string section every time we went out on the road. Although if we went out on the road now, that's exactly what I'd do. I'd get an orchestra, find someone with some money and go, can you give us an orchestra? But so we do stuff like that on other keyboards and that, So you did have to change quite a bit, and some things where we double track guitars and stuff. And the guitar, quite often we wouldn't double track guitars. You could, on some of our tracks you can hear Harvey or Clive dropping out the rhythm and then doing a lead solo, but there's no rhythm in there, quite like a 3-piece does. I kind of like that. It's really raw, but I like it. Because when the rhythm drops out, then the bass player plays something overplays a little bit more because there's no rhythm guitar there.
To make
so you tend to do something different. And I've discovered that in the years since playing with three pieces. I really enjoyed that. You know, whether it's piano, bass and drums, or guitar, bass and drums, you always change when the solo comes up. You know, it's fun. I like it.
Yeah. Well, apart from Sherbet, you've played with a lot of other bands too, haven't you?
Yeah, I played with Sherbet and Parko for years. I was with Doug Parko for years. That was a great band. And a lot of guys in Parko's band were from John English's band. So I played with John English for five years or so.
All right.
Which was great because he's a hard rocker, and I got a lot of aggression out of me being with John. And we did a lot of great stage shows. We recorded one album with him, I think. So I think it was his last album, Dark Horses. I recorded with him, man. But that was the only recording I did with him. And all the other stuff had the original bass player on it, John Coker. But you know, I did all the live gigs for many years with him. And I did lots of different stuff. We did the Rock Legends tour, and I played with Chuck Berry. That was fun. You know, you never know what you're going to do. That guy, you meet him 10 minutes before you go on. That's pretty scary.
Did you get a feel for what he's like as a person?
You certainly did.
What's he like?
Well, he's different. I think he's fantastic. And when he's on, just about every night, he was absolutely brilliant. He'd do his duck walk. But it's difficult. And everyone that's played with him would agree with me here, including Keith Richards. I said, excuse me, Chuck, and he's immediately, this is 10 minutes before we went on when we met him. He said, that's Mr. Berry to you, son. I said, oh, Mr. Berry, how do we know what songs you're going to play? Because we know what songs you're going to do, but what order you're going to do them in. He said, that's for me to know and you to find out. I said, okay, Mr. Berry, what about the keys? Because somebody told me. He said, don't listen to what other people tell you, son. You know, he said the keys are for me to know and you to find out. You watch me like a hawk. You watch where I'm playing. I went, okay then, Mr. Berry. And he also said, when I stamp my foot down like that, you stop playing. That's the end of the song, right? I said, okay. So here we are, we're on stage, and he's rocking his butt off, right? And he starts tapping his foot, so we kept stopping and starting. So he stops the band in front of 12,000 people, says, and comes up to me, because I was the smart ass, right? He comes up and he says, why did you do that, Mr. Bass Player? And I said, well, Mr. Berry, you said a half an hour ago when I stamped my foot to stop playing. You went, oh, I forgot. You know. So he wasn't difficult, and you really did have to keep your eye on him. But it was an absolute honour and like gobsmacking to play with him. He was unbelievable. Yeah, he was just amazing. And he really liked the band. We went and did, off that tour, he did his own gig up in Newcastle, and he played for a whole hour, which is totally unheard of. He hasn't done an hour-long gig since God knows when, if he ever did. He's renowned for playing for 20 minutes and that's it. He did a whole hour with us. He even did an encore. He asked me to change the strings on his guitar. And I said, Mr. Berry, I can change the strings. If you've got an Oxy welder, I can change it. He said, what does that mean? I said, well, when was the last time you changed your strings? He said, oh, I forgot, you know, probably 2-3 years ago. They were kind of rusted onto the guitar, you know. But it was a lot of fun. And it was a real, you know, like, it's great to have that on your resume. Oh. I played with Chubby Checker, he was fantastic.
Wow.
Chubby Checker was great. He did 3 songs, he played for a whole hour and did 3 songs.
Twist Again?
Yeah, and he did that for about half an hour. I said, aren't you going to do more songs? He said, I'll just do 3 and we'll just jam, right? And just stop when I tell you, you know. And during these songs, he gets every woman in the audience to get up. He starts with one. At the end of the song, the whole stage is just women everywhere, you know, dancing with him.
Right.
So that was a lot of fun.
So he's kind of like that Professor Longhair, the Alan Toussaint type player.
Yeah. He's a really nice bloke, you know. He was on the plane. He got straight off the plane, came to the gig, right? And you just meet him and you just play. They're pretty easy songs to play. but he loved it really loud. He said, turn it up loud, you know. So, oh, great, this is going to be great. We had a ball. But he didn't know where he was. He came up to me and he said, where am I? And I said, you're in Sydney. He said, oh, that's right. I forgot where I was. You know, he had a few drinks on the plane, so he was a bit tired and stuff. You know, but he performed really great.